What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. As always, this video is brought to you by NutriBio Supplements, Crystals Bikinis, and Bio Longevity Labs. Before I get started, I want to thank everybody for helping the channel reach 1,000 subscribers. Not a big deal to some, but pretty cool to me. So, being that that is a bit of a milestone for the channel, my friends at NutriBio and I are offering an opportunity to win some new products or win some free products. So for this video only, every single comment will count as one entry into a raffle that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to let this go on the entire week. And then next week, I'm going to enter everyone into a simulator. A winner will be automatically chosen. I'll reach out for your shipping information, and then we are going to ship out to you a nice care package of NutriBio products. So, like I said, the only way to enter this is to one, subscribe to the channel, and two, leave a comment on this video. I am going to check all of the people that comment that they are subscribed to the channel. You can see that. So, if you are not, please subscribe, leave a comment, and with that, let the next Q&A video begin. Zero sides on long esters, many sides on short esters. The bro lore says that shorter esters equals less sides. Why? That's a good question. I'm not totally sure either why the bro lore would be that way. I suppose this comes down to the idea that if you're doing short esters, your injection frequency is going to be higher or more consistent. For me, no matter what season I'm in, whether I'm in an off season, whether I'm on a cruise, whether I'm in prep, whether I'm using short esters, long esters, I do daily shots. I do my shots I do my gear every single day. And doing that has helped me mitigate many of the side effects that I used to get. And I will say that for me, I have this same experience. I actually get much less side effects from longer esters than I do from shorter esters. In general, I'm very resilient to anabolics, and I don't get many of the side effects or negative side effects that I hear reported about. The obvious one for me is the side effects from trenbolone, and I've almost exclusively used tren acetate, even at very low amounts, 5 milligrams a day, 10 milligrams a day, still felt some effect on my mood and my overall disposition. And I also felt a negative impact on my sleep. Running a longer ester trend, like I ran a hex, you could also run an anthate. I saw little to no side effects on trend hex and all the positives. So, in my experience, this has been the same as well. In years prior, I would switch all my gear in contest prep to short esters. And it seems like the only time in my life I ever had gear induced acne was from being on test propionate. So, can't explain why, but that's my bro experience. Besides blood work, what are the telltale signs for high versus low E2? So low E2, it's going to be different for everyone. Don't crucify me over this, but in my experience, low E2, a big one, at least for me, has always been dry and itchy skin. The skin on my face will get dry. Because I shave my head, the skin of my scalp gets very dry and itchy. I become very, very cold and easily irritated with low E2. And I have zero libido. I may even have normal erection quality and function, just zero mental libido or desire. And then the big one is that my joints are always feeling beat up or painful. My knees, especially, which is always a very obvious sign for me because, knock on wood, I've been bodybuilding for a long time. I've done some crazy stuff, leg training, heavy squats, heavy leg press, and I've never had issues with my knees. I've never worn knee wraps. I've never worn knee sleeves. But if my E2 gets low, there's times that I ran, the safer use, low test, very high master on cycle, and my knees were the first thing that I started to notice. High E2, it sounds cliche, but you will definitely be more sensitive or emotionally volatile. Whereas low E2, you're cold and numb to everything. High E2, you're reactive to everything. Definitely more susceptible to negative emotional responses. Libido wise, you will have the desire sexually, but a lot of times high E2 manifests in guys as erectile dysfunction or lack of erection quality or consistency. So maybe you get into it and you want to get into it, it starts and then you can't maintain the quality of it. So that would be one to look out for as well. Undue or seemingly random water retention, higher blood pressure, poor sleep. Those are all things that I've seen from high E2. What to expect starting 1 milligram of Retta per week? Is that a normal dose used for someone that's non competitive? Totally normal. That's regardless of who's using it and who's not. That's exactly where I would recommend starting it. I think anything less than that, you probably are not going to notice much, even on your blood work. 1 milligram seems to be the sweet spot in terms of being able to get lab marker benefits, insulin sensitivity improvement. If you are looking for the reduction in quote unquote food noise, food focus, or actual appetite, I'm not sure that you're going to see it there, but it is better to start low and progress it slowly because it's a very long half life. So it will take a while to notice changes in dosages. And because of that, you don't want to run into a brick wall where suddenly you go from 1 milligram a week to 3 milligrams a week because you get impatient. And all of a sudden it hits you like a ton of bricks and you can't even look at your food. So I would start there. I think that's a great spot to do it. If at 1 milligram, it's not a ton. So if you wanted to do the single dose per week, I think that would be fine. People that do this do notice that by day 5, 6, or 7, they start to notice if they are getting appetite suppression, they notice it start to fall off. In this scenario, and for most people, I prefer twice a week. I've done it all. I've done daily. I've done different schedules. From what I've seen now and what I've heard smart people discuss with the research, doing daily might actually blunt your sensitivity to the benefits that you're getting from the drug. So that might not be the best move. And so what I've kind of landed on is twice a week. So I personally am doing 1 milligram a week, and I do a half a milligram on Monday and a half a milligram on Thursday. How do you decide whether you need to add or reduce volume if strength is at a plateau? So, guys, I've talked about this. I don't really I can't really relate to this, or I don't really understand this. Other than being at the tail end of a contest prep or a very harsh diet where you're very exotically lean, plateaus or loss of performance should not be happening. This tells me that your other variables and your life, your schedule, things are not consistent. If this is the case, I don't think that adding volume is the right move. I think that if you are truly at a point where training performance has stopped improving, maybe you start to notice that you enjoy going to the gym less, that to me are signs that you need a few days off from the gym. And depending on how beat up you feel, how your joints and tendons feel, how big you are, how strong you usually are in the gym, what kind of poundages you're moving in the gym, all of that will determine how long off the gym. For me, when I get to that point, I like 4 days off from the gym. And then that for me gets me back to a point that by the third or fourth day off from the gym, I'm excited to go back to the gym. That's where you want to be. You want to be excited to go to the gym. So, for example, I start my off-season push December 1st, which is next Monday. So I am going to train. I trained yesterday, Monday. I trained today, Tuesday, and I'll train tomorrow, Wednesday. And then after that, I'm going to take Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off to set up being fresh for that push. I would imagine by Sunday, I cannot wait to get back into the gym. So to me, time off is the answer here. And then if you're hell bent on continuing, which it doesn't sound like that's a great idea, you could reduce volume and see if that works. But then you almost wonder if it's enough volume to elicit a response. So to me, I would take a few days off, 2, 3, 4 days off, and then I would come back at lower volumes than what you were doing. What are your boundaries with business? Specific work hours, no phone after a certain time. This is a good question. So there have been times where I think I took too harsh of a perspective on this and tried to run it more like a corporate business where it's like, okay, I'm only available from this time to this time. But that was also at a point where I needed to accept any client that reached out. And so because of that, a good chunk of the clients that I was working with are not necessarily people that I wanted to help or enjoyed helping. Over the past couple of years, things have changed quite a bit for me, and my perspective on it has changed. I can honestly say basically every single person that I help at this point, I look forward to hearing from them and I enjoy helping them. So because of that, I've become much more personable and available within the role of being a coach. So I'm on my phone all day, all the time. I don't have very hard boundaries about it. There's two things that I draw a hard line in the sand about. Number one is on your predetermined check-in day, I have a cutoff of 12 p.m. Eastern time to get your proper check-in entered. And if you do not do that, you are going to be answered the following day after everyone that checked in on time that day is answered. Because to me, 12 noon is crazy. Like there's no way that anyone should be sleeping beyond that. I will make an exception for people that are on the West Coast or, different parts of the world, whatever. But for the most part, if people are here in the States and in the Eastern or similar time zone, you're going to have it in prior to noon. And if not, you're going to get answered tomorrow. Because if I can't trust you to do something as simple as submit the check-in that you want a response to on time, I've had to not put people on blast, but there are times where I've had to say, hey, we really need to dial this in. You are habitually late. And I honestly take it as a point of disrespect for someone that runs a business, especially with how available I am outside of that. So your proper check in, I expect it in by noon. Other than that, I'm always available, especially in between your check ins. I tell everybody, all of my athletes, all of my clients, when they check in, we'll go over what is changing, why it's changing, what to expect for the week. And then I always say, all right, man, if anything, I'll talk to you next week. And if anything pops up in the meantime, if you need anything, let me know. So I'm answering people all day. I have most of the people just either on personal text, iMessage, or WhatsApp. So people are texting me all day, all the time. The other hard line in the sand I have is that I put my phone on do not disturb sometimes at 7:30 if I'm spending the night with Kelsey or we have something planned, usually at 8 o'clock. And so the only exception for that would be if someone is deep in contest prep and I'm getting check-ins from them later at night. Like, hey, I want to check in before meal five. Hey, I want to check in before bed, whatever the case is. In that case, I will move my sleep schedule and stay up for somebody. Or again, in a situation where someone's in a different part of the world and it's getting near showtime for someone, I will stay up or I'll set an alarm and get back up. But those are really the only two. I'm on my phone all day, every day. I had clients that this past week, and I appreciate the consideration, but people know that I'm going on vacation from Thursday to Sunday. And I had a couple of people say, hey, I normally check in Friday. Hey, I normally check in Sunday. I saw that you're going on vacation. Do you want me to send it at a different time? Do you want me to skip this week? I appreciate that, but there's no breaks when you work for yourself, especially when you are the business, when your personal service is the business. So I feel like I work 365 days a year. Really, the only time I will ever say flat out don't check in or move it to the following day would be if on a Saturday I'm competing and I don't have any other clients that are also competing that day. What's the current scoop on the carpal tunnel slash surgery? So briefly, I went through the whole process, met with the surgeon, MRIs, X-rays, even got sent out and paid for an out-of-pocket EMG nerve test to determine what exactly needed surgery and to what severity each side was. And the insurance originally approved two, I think the term is laparoscopic surgeries. So, like a minimally invasive surgery on each side, fixing specifically the carpal tunnel on each side. So, my EMG nerve test on my right side determined that the Guyon's canal, all the way back up through my elbow, is also severely compressed, and that my right side would require an open, more invasive surgery. And so they pulled the plug on that claim and they were only going to approve the one side. And then I was going to have to pay out of pocket for the other surgery. So it was going to be two separate surgeries. And I think the open surgery on the right side was close to or just under 30 grand. And so I just decided I'm just going to skip it. I'm just going to move forward without it. If later in life it progresses or gets worse, or I'm done with bodybuilding and I feel like it's hindering my quality of life, I'll try the surgery. But I've also heard from quite a few people that got the surgery and it either didn't improve things or it even made things worse for them. So I just believe that everything happens for a reason. I have a strong faith in God, and I believe that because this went this way, that it just wasn't part of the plan that he has for me right now. So I'm not sweating it. It's manageable. I've settled on an amount of GH that is a bodybuilding amount and I can handle it. It doesn't make it any worse. I've got up to 11.5 IUs of GH per day, which is more than I've ever run in an off season to begin with. And it hasn't made my current symptoms worse, and it doesn't bother me while I sleep. So I'm letting it ride. It doesn't affect my training. The only thing that I could see it bothering me, or sometimes I feel it, and it's painful in the wrist, is when I get through a back day because I'm wearing the straps that are wrapped around my wrist pretty tight the whole time. And so if I do like back and biceps, for example, I'll get through all the back work and then I go to do biceps and my wrists are killing me. So, like, to the point that I can't really even hold like a cable handle or something. So, to avoid that or get around that, what I'm going to do for my upcoming push, I am going to do biceps first before chest and shoulders. And then I'm going to do triceps first on the day that I do back, just to avoid that and make arms a further priority in terms of the programming. This is an interesting question. What are your current goals slash vision for the podcast and your channel in general? You know what? 2 days ago, if I would have got this question, I could have honestly said that I've never even considered this or thought about it. But Kelsey just asked me this a couple of days ago. We were sitting on the couch hanging out, and she asked me what goals or where do I see this going or how big do I want to take it or whatever. And I still really don't even have an answer. My goal with this all along was to put out good information that would help people. I love bodybuilding. I love every aspect of bodybuilding. And I've been pursuing it, obsessed with it, thinking about it nonstop. Every action reflects that from the time that I was 19 years old, going on 15 years ago. So I know that there are other people out there that are like me. And there are many years that I feel like were wasted, many efforts, time, money, all of these things that were wasted because I spent a lot of time just trial and erroring things, trialing and error, however you want to put that, trying things, failing, trying to work things out for myself. Again, there was not the same type of information that was readily available and free like it is now. So my goal with this from day one and moving forward is just to put out good information that help people within their process. And I get messages um, from people and they're like, hey, you recommended XYZ on a video a couple of weeks ago and I tried it and it made such a big difference. That to me is the payoff for this. I get that excited message from somebody and that makes my whole day. That's the whole point that I want to do this. So I think with the podcast now, especially since we've added Josh or when I have certain guests on, I guess that there is an element of entertainment that comes with it as well. But that is kind of icing on the cake. As you guys see, or if you're familiar with the videos, there's not tons of production value. I'm not doing anything. I'm not editing the videos. I film everything on Zoom. And then as soon as I'm done, I literally just post it online. The whole idea is that there is a value in listening. So I've always thought about it like a transaction. Like someone is going to pay me with their time, and in return, they should be able to walk away with something that was valuable. So that's really the only goal. I just want to continue to grow and expand my knowledge within my own personal bodybuilding and with my coaching and coaching other athletes, and then sharing that experience, sharing my findings. If it means offering up a better way to do things or even changing my opinion on something that I formerly felt strongly about or what have you, I'm changing my opinion all the time because I go through different experiences. So how I feel about certain things now might be totally different than how it was 5 years ago. So long story short, I don't really have a big goal or vision. the goal is not result based, meaning it's not subscriber related, it's not views related, it's not money related. It's simply just to put out information that helps people. For the last month or two of a growth phase, would you rather increase gear or increase GH? In this situation, I would rather increase gear, and I'll tell you why. I think when it comes to growing and building and solidifying new tissue, that's a slow process. I think in terms of the benefits related to that process that you get from growth hormone are an even slower process. Growing and using growth hormone to enhance your size or your physique is a very long-term game. Using growth hormone in a diet or specifically in a contest prep, you can get very quick visual changes, obvious cosmetic changes to your physique from increasing growth hormone. Can't tell you how many times, either with myself or especially with clients, when you get to, you get someone lean and they're like 8 weeks out. And I've had guys that say, hey, I put aside X amount of growth hormone. I've had it, put away, and we purposely modified my dose the whole year. I've been doing 6 IUs the whole time. Now that we're 8 weeks out, I have enough to run 10 IUs a day until the show. They do that, and a week later, they look different. They look like a better bodybuilder. In this situation, when you're trying to grow, I think in terms of putting on like actual tissue, training, performance, recovery, all of those things that are important when you're trying to grow, there's going to be a more tangible return from more gear. Now, what your health situation is a totally different story. But in terms of what is going to be more beneficial for the last 4 to 8 weeks of a growing phase, I think it's more gear. Here's the deal. You win the 2028 Mr. Olympia, but you lose your girlfriend today and never speak to her again. Yes or no? Absolutely not. And firstly, I don't have a girlfriend. I have a fiance. I put a ring on it. So that should tell you how strongly I feel about this. But no, there's nothing on earth that I would exchange my relationship with Kelsey for. Nothing on any other planet that I would exchange it for. She truly is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And our relationship is the most fulfilling part of my life. So there's nothing that you could say to me that would make me take that deal. Why would you use Lantus over Tresiba if Tresiba is supposed to be in your system longer? So I had to look into this. To be totally honest with you, I have never heard of Tresiba. I've never seen it. I've never seen it on a price list from a source. I maybe shouldn't say this, but I get my insulin from an actual diabetic that she just sells off part of her inventory every month. And she has Humalog, she has Lantus. I've never once run across Tresiba. I've never been brought the idea of Tresiba from a client that said, hey, I can get this. What do you think about it? So I looked into it. It apparently is a 42 to 46 hour action time, but I take that with a grain of salt because online it will tell you that Lantus is 24 hours. And in my experience, I have seen a strong action from Lantus for anywhere from 6 to 8 hours, depending on how lean I am and how much food I'm eating. So with that said, I don't know. So let's say maybe the action time of Tresiba is actually 16 to 24 hours. Sure, if it offers the same type of anabolic properties in terms of how it antagonizes IGF-1, I don't see why I don't see why you wouldn't use this if you had it available to you. It seems like you could probably get the same benefits from Tresiba as you would from Lantus, but maybe only having to administer it once. I personally like to administer Lantus twice in a day. Good question. It made me think. It made me look something up, but I can't give you a firsthand experience answer because I have never even heard of this before this question was submitted. How many grams of fiber is optimal in an off-season phase for digestion? Let's say that we're talking about an enhanced male physique competitor. I would say, depending on how big you are and how much food you're eating, it could be anywhere from 30 grams of fiber per day as like a floor, and then 50 to 60, depending on how iron your gut is and how much you're eating. Sometimes when you're eating a ton of food, it's hard to avoid having a higher total of fiber, but I would generally put it in that range. In your experience, personal or with clients, what's the biggest stage weight gain in a season? In a season. So let's qualify that as like one calendar year to the next. And let's say that could even be, like, for example, April of 24 to fall of 25. So somewhere in the 12 to 18-month range. 15 to 20 pounds is not uncommon. I hear so often that these people make hard, there's people online, educators, coaches that make hard lines in the sand about, um, you can, like, it's a black and white confirmed thing. You can add 1 pound of tissue for every month of the off season, or you can add 8 pounds of tissue in a year if you're super dedicated and enhanced and all this stuff. I don't put a ceiling on it at all. I have seen I don't want to say very commonly, because not everyone is on top of their shit all year. But for the people that are just all in and they do a show, and then right after the show, they nail it, and they nail it through the off season and into the next prep, 15 or 20 pounds is very, very realistic for an enhanced male. Favorite training intensifiers for weak points. I like rest pause if I had to pick one only. I like rest pause. I like drop sets. I've recently gotten back into drop sets because, from talking and trusting Austin as much as I do, he likes them a lot. And so from our interactions and being that he's become someone kind of in my corner that I trust and go to about my own bodybuilding, I've used drop sets and I like them. But there is something to be said for a proper DC style rest pause, because to me, you are reaching a failure point with a top set type weight. And then at the same weight, you're going to reach failure 2 more times in a condensed period. So you're basically reaching 3 failure points without ever reducing the load. So to me, that must mean that the stimulus is greater than, say, a single or a double drop set, because even if you're reaching failure at all these points, the load becomes less each time. So I don't necessarily think that load is always a great indicator of stimulus, but if all things are equal and we're reaching failure the same number of times and training with the same relative intensity, I think failing that same number of times at a greater amount of load is going to equal more stimulus. And I've just seen that with myself. I think the best period of growth that I've ever had in my life in terms of a single body part was when I was religiously doing DC rest pause on a leg press and my legs blew up. That was when I really solidified having like a big set of legs. What is the most valuable bodybuilding advice you'd give to 25-year-old you? Good question. I would have told myself to hire a coach and stay with that coach through all seasons of the year. So from 19 to probably 19 to 27, I would hire a coach if I was doing a contest and I would have them prep me. But then the moment the show was over, I would do my own thing. So I always did my own off seasons. I think I left a lot of progress on the table. I think I wasted a lot of time. I think I wasted a lot of prime bodybuilding years. So having a coach that you stay with all year, I think is enormously valuable from the moment that you start bodybuilding. And it doesn't need to be Hani Rambod. There's much less magic in the actual program or the coach's name than people think. Because I think doing it by yourself as a 24-year-old, even if you pick someone that's not super highly regarded as a coach and you just stick with them, having that structure and accountability and a second set of eyes is going to be better than trying to do it yourself. Also, early on, so a 25-year-old me. So I'm trying to think about this too, because if I was given this advice so the advice to 25-year-old me would have been to stick with a coach all year, long term, stick with one coach for 3 or 4 years at that point. In general, to the young bodybuilder, actual bodybuilding advice that I would give is that you are young and fresh, and this is the time to push the envelope, especially with the training. I think it's a good time to push the envelope with the training. And especially if you have a coach and a second eye, it's a good time to push the food. As you get older, your stomach and your digestion, your appetite are going to give you more issues. You're more likely to grow your gut later on. So that's a great time to train your face off and get big, even if it means get soft. It's very easy to pull body fat off. It's not easy to get big. What's the most valuable business advice you'd give 25-year-old you? Best business advice that I would give myself at 25 would be to put yourself out there more and not worry so much about what other people think and be ruthlessly yourself. I feel like I've grown into a man that is that way now, but I was not always that way, especially publicly and public facing. So I would have, I've always been someone that had strong opinions. I feel like I'm a good judge of character and I like to be informed about things. And then when I am, I speak confidently about them. You very rarely, probably never hear me talking out of my ass and talking confidently about something that I'm totally blind to. That's not me. But if I'm passionate about something, if I'm informed about something, chances are I have a strong opinion about it. And I didn't show that to many people early on. And I think I was too worried about having everyone like me or everyone agree with me. So I would ride the midline more. And so for me, just staying true to myself, I would tell 25-year-old me to let it rip and it will resonate with the right people. Another piece of advice I would have given to 25-year-old me, business wise, would have been to network and be more willing to, it sounds cliche in the content era, but like more willing to collaborate with people, go meet more people within bodybuilding to kind of grow your circle. Especially, I don't know how, but I inherently knew at a young age and a young part of my bodybuilding that I wanted to teach or that I enjoyed teaching or coaching. Anytime that I felt like I figured something out or learned something new, I enjoyed passing that along to other people in hopes that it would also help them. And so having a bigger network and being that way would potentially help you expand or start a business sooner. When starting your business, how long did it take to start picking up traction? So my answer is going to be very unique to me, and I think it's a skewed answer because I was very fortunate, I would say. So I started bodybuilding in 2011 with the idea, it wasn't like I just got into the gym because I played a sport or something. Day one in the gym, I wanted to be a bodybuilder. I went in with a full program, a diet, everything. It was like, okay, I'm going to do this because I was never just casually into the gym. I'm always been like, if I'm going to do something, I want to go all in on it. So my idea starting 2011 was to be a bodybuilder. First time I competed, or I started that in 2011. Competed the first time in 2014. So by 2020, sorry, 2017, I started helping people. And I helped a couple of people for free. And then I had a handful of people that I was helping for $50 a month. And then maybe by 2018, if new people reached out, I would say, yeah, give me $100 a month and I'll totally program everything for you. We'll do check-ins. By 2021, I was at a point with clients that I could pay my bills on top of separately working a full-time job. So I was doing all right because I had the full-time job, I had benefits and everything. And then I had this side gig that I was making enough money that from that alone, I could pay my bills. And then I moved to Texas. At the time, John Jewett was my coach and he had coached me for years. I moved to San Antonio so that I could train in the same gym as him. And eventually he hired me as the first J3U coach. So that was when it really took off. I left my job without really having anything else, just knowing, hey, this is going to be a fresh start. This could possibly open me up to a whole new community of bodybuilding, a whole new way of life. I'm willing to bet on myself. I know I can at least pay my bills from coaching. So I'm going to go all in. And so, when did it pick up traction? That was when it became a viable full-time thing because it went from me just being able to skate by and pay my bills and pay my necessities from coaching to doing well and it being like a full-time solidified thing that I didn't need to do anything else. So that was 2022, like early 2022, and I've been doing it at that level or even higher since. But going back to what I had said earlier, business advice wise, I, like I said, started taking clients in 2017, and I had built it to a point of being able to at least pay my bills by 2021. And that was, I never once posted on social media about being a coach or taking clients or anything. Every single person that came to me was either because of word of mouth, because of from someone else that I had helped, an interaction that they had personally with me, or someone just reached out and said, hey, would you help me? So I think I probably could have grown it even bigger up to that point had I not been afraid of what other people thought of me. And I would have just put myself out there. When do you start your true off season, and do you plan on posting your most recent labs? So I think I answered this earlier, but I am filming this today, Tuesday, the 25th. I will start my off season next Monday, so less than a week away, finally, December 1st. And I'm just going to run it until some bottleneck comes up, whether I get, whether my coach thinks I get too soft, whether I'm too heavy and sick of food, unless something health wise pops up, whatever. And then I'm hoping to compete sometime next fall. I'm hoping that I can put on enough tissue to be a solidified and competitive super heavyweight. So I would basically off season from December through April, cruise for May, start prep in June, and then compete sometime next fall. I'm going to give myself that timeline to do that process. I'm not committing to actually competing though, because if I get to like 8 weeks out and it looks like I'm going to be lighter than I expected, or not big or not heavy enough, I will just pull the plug and reverse out. But there's really no way to know if you're going to be big enough or if you put on enough tissue without going through the prep process. You can't just look at yourself at peak off season and say, "Oh yeah, I'm big enough. Now's the point where I'm going to start a prep." And conversely, I don't think you can look at yourself at peak off season and say, "No, I still need more." I mean, you definitely know when you're not there, but it's difficult to tell if you've added as much as you think that you've added without dieting some of it off. So that's my goal. In terms of labs, yes. So moving forward, I'm going to do like a weekly, I guess, vlog, even though they're not necessarily, I'm not walking around with a phone, but I'm going to be doing like a weekly sit down, similar to what I did with the rebound series. It's just going to be a continuation of the Project Super Heavy off season edition. So I'll do a weekly summary once a week, with the first one being, next Monday or Tuesday. So I will talk about the initial setup in terms of PEDs, where my diet is starting, what these most recent labs look like, what my training split is going to be, health supplements, all that. So I will touch on the most recent labs. And then I'm also scheduled to get labs done December 18th. So when I'm just about 3 weeks into the cycle, I'm going to get labs pulled again. That will be part of that week's video. I plan on doing that probably. I plan on doing labs every 3 or 4 weeks just to keep a really good eye on things. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive than I've ever been before. So that's part of it. And then I also just think it's good to stay up on it. It's interesting. And there's a lot that can be learned. So best piece of advice that you've ever been given. So we talked bodybuilding advice, business advice earlier. So I'll just give some pieces of advice that in general life have served me well. Recently I came across this, or someone told me this, and it's been good for me. And that piece of advice was to be where your feet are. Basically, just a reminder to be present and mindful and be in the moment where you are right at that time. I think like many others, I have a habit to always be looking ahead and always be looking forward to what the next thing is, what the next goal is, how I'm going to set it up, what the plan of action is moving forward. Even if I just accomplish something or finish the goal, it's just always on to the next thing. So be where your feet are is a good one. I've always liked the phrase, and I almost use it as a mantra during challenging or difficult times. The phrase, life happens for us. So similar to everything happens for a reason, but in difficult times when I've repeated that to myself, life happens for us. It's a reminder that things are happening for a purpose that is going to lead to something greater on the other end of it. And then one more piece of advice, I would, it sounds counterintuitive, but one of the best pieces of advice I could give is to actually not take advice from anyone that doesn't have the things that you want or the life that you want. I can relate that to bodybuilding, business, relationships, whatever. You know, if you want to be a 300-pound open bodybuilder, don't take off-season growing advice from a 170-pound influencer. If you want to be one of these super billionaires, don't take advice from somebody that's homeless. And, if you want to be someone that ends up with a really rewarding and fulfilling relationship, don't take advice from your single friends. Ladies, not to throw you under the bus, but I think you are the worst with this. Girls get into a really good relationship, with a good guy that treats them well. And then their 6 single friends that are all miserable being single start chirping in and giving advice, almost trying to sabotage the relationship. So don't let it happen. What do bodybuilders say or do that gets under your skin? Oh man. I'm gonna say a couple things, and it's all meant in good fun. It's all just meant in jest. I think, especially online, when you meet people in person or when you speak to people in person, I think bodybuilders are some of the nicest and most humble people that you'll meet. The bodybuilding community in real life has been incredibly rewarding and uplifting to be part of. Online, it's a different story. So, what do guys say that get under my skin? There's a couple that I think are funny. I mean, it's nothing too deep, but for example, if somebody, let's say somebody just competed, and it's 4 days later, a week later, even 3 weeks later, you know, they'll post a photo of themselves. Usually, it's like their abs, right? And they'll be like keeping it tight this off season, and it's like, yeah, motherfucker, you better still be tight. 3 weeks later, you just dieted for 20 weeks. If you blew it in 3 weeks, there's a problem. So that's one. I think it's always very funny, and it's always people. It won't even be that they've recently competed. A lot of times, it's they're deep in the off season. The excitement from the online acknowledgement is not as frequent, and people will post throwbacks of their stage photos, and they'll be like, "This plus 10 pounds." Like, very rarely have I ever seen someone that post that actually comes back plus 10 pounds of muscle tissue in proper conditioning. Like, there's a lot of people that say that, and there's way less people that actually do it. I think that's all. I think I'm going to leave that for now. I don't want to get too negative about it. I know you've gone over this on YouTube, but I can't find the exact clips. What peptides did the most for you? I'm coming into a cruise, so I'm looking to use some for the first time. Also, did you get anything out of IGF-LR3, or was it a waste of money? So I think that IGF-LR3 was largely a waste of money, and being that many sources are selling this at a price that's higher than growth hormone that I've seen testing off the charts in terms of quantity and quality and purity, it makes no sense to me. It's not something that I would ever do again. I had my one run with it. I can't say that I got anything tangible from it. I won't do it again. What peptides did I get the most out of? let's talk about like the new age peptides. Obviously, growth hormone and insulin are actually peptides. You guys know how I feel about those. I would say like if the idea is body composition, dieting, or really even in an off season, I still think that the bread and butter big three for me are retatrutide, SLU, and MOTS-C. SLU less in the off season. Retta and MOTS-C absolutely throughout the off season, absolutely throughout contest prep. I think contest prep or a diet phase, or maybe even a cruise when you're trying to clean up your composition, that can be a good time to try or jack up SLU. For this guy specifically, going into a cruise, I think that's a good time to pull MOTS-C out if it was already in, or don't include it if you haven't. I think that's a great time to run SS31. I did that during my cruise. I saw my EGFR go up by like 30 points. So definitely a good value there. EQ to permanently substitute Primo or Mast for the long-term growth phase. Absolutely no reason to need to substitute it, brother, because I'm already on EQ. Anybody that watches my videos knows how I feel about this stuff. I think EQ is a no-brainer for the off season alongside a healthy amount of test and GH. I would choose EQ over those other two any day of the week if we're talking about growing. Do you notice a difference for clients or yourself running NPP versus DECA? So I don't. I don't notice a difference between these two, at least from what people have reported to me and what I've felt myself. The thing that I do notice, or the comparison that I notice, is just whether or not someone does well with nandrolone. So typically it's I haven't seen that someone does really well on DECA, but they're a anxious lunatic on NPP or vice versa. I don't see that. It's either people can handle nandrolones or they can't. And if they can, both are awesome. Both are great. Last one here. Oh man, this guy has like a really personal. Let me see. So this guy's in a fat loss phase, wants to use it as a cleanup before starting a push. Cardio is 30 minutes a week on training days, 45 minutes. Okay, so cardio is 30 minutes per training day, 45 minutes per non-training day. He's down 2.5 pounds over the last 2 weeks. Wanting to start increasing food by 5% and decrease cardio to go from there. Have trouble with second guessing. Would love your opinion. I'm sorry, man. I don't really have much of an opinion on this. I don't know what you look like or how lean you are. Um, I wouldn't expect anything off the wall though. Like if you are at a set amount of calories and output, and then you start reducing the output and increasing calories, you're going to gain weight. You may look a little softer or more watery. Like don't go into this and expect that some miracle is going to happen. Especially like you've been dieting. It sounds like dieting for 2 weeks, or maybe that was only an update from the last 2 weeks. But if you haven't been dieting long, I would just keep dieting. If you're not, for the sake of wanting to set up like a rebound or a better spot to grow from, you need to get leaner than you want to, or leaner than you expected to. I will say one thing that stood out to me that I don't like, for me, I like to set cardio at just a set amount. I don't like to vary it training days or not. And also, this guy's already ramped his cardio up to 7 days a week. That's something I basically never do, not even really deep in contest prep for people. For the most part, I stick to 5 days a week. Sometimes, if someone really needs to push for fat loss, I'll bring it up to 6 days a week. But I like at least one day off completely from cardio. Most of the time, I like two. So I would set your cardio at 5 days a week, and I would set the duration as a standard, regardless of whether you're training or not. I can't really speak to when you should be increasing food or decreasing your output because I don't know what you look like. But that's where I'm going to leave it. Thanks to everybody that wrote in questions. Really, really appreciate it. This seemed to be one of the Q&As that I've gotten the most response to or the most questions to. So I appreciate it. Hopefully this video was of value to you guys. Again, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. So every single comment from someone that follows will count as one entry into a raffle that I'm going to do for NutriBio products. If you made it this far, I appreciate you watching. And until next time, guys, I am out.